I'm Bradley, I'm the product owner of MuseScore Studio, and in our latest release, version 4.7, we're bringing you yet more essential engraving tools, as well as some nifty updates to improve your workflow and playback experience. And we're rounding off our guitar journey in the version 4 series with some nice new features for guitarists. But we've also treated this update a little differently. For version 4.7, we've doubled down on our efforts to review over 200 suggestions from our developer community, the open source heroes who volunteer their time to make the app better with every release. I'm going to show off some of the great work they do a little later, but for now, let's get started by looking at our newest engraving features. In MuseScore Studio 4.7, there are now lines with arrowheads, allowing you to indicate transitions for things like tempo, vowel sounds, playing position, and more. You'll find them in the lines palette, but in properties, you can also add arrowheads to existing lines, like tempo change lines, as well as system and stave text lines. We've also added a set of vertical brackets to both the lines and keyboard palettes. These guys are really useful for a range of things, like showing notes that should be played with either the left or right hand for pianists, or barre positions for guitarists. And while you're busy bracketing your chords, you'll find our existing parentheses have been given some more capability. Previously, whether you selected a single note or a group of notes, clicking this button in properties would add a set of parentheses to each individual notehead. Now, when a chord is selected, a single set of parentheses will be drawn across the entire chord. And by selecting a single note in a parenthesized chord and pressing the normal notehead button, you can break parentheses into separate groups. System dividers now have a couple of helpful new controls in styles, letting you determine their scale and horizontal alignment. And by popular demand, quotation marks now use the curly variant by default. And like in most word processors, you can undo these to get the straight ones back if you really want them. Moving on to guitar features. In 4.7, you can now draw proper dive lines to indicate the use of the whammy or vibrato bar. If you've used bends in MuseScore before, dives work in pretty much the same way. Find them in the guitar palette and add them either to existing notes or tablature fret numbers. You can also add pre-dives, dips, and scoops from the guitar palette. Dives get their own graphical control in the properties panel, where you can modify their pitch by quarter tone intervals and refine their playback timing. The existing capo feature also has some new options. In addition to having the capo transpose the guitar while reading in open position, you can now set the notation to show sounding pitches, useful for non-guitarist collaborators who need to see what the guitarist is actually playing. And there's also the option to not transpose the guitar with the capo at all, helpful if you just need it to simplify the fingering. Finally, we've added the option to transpose chord symbols together with their fretboard diagrams. Now we're going to look at the new workflow upgrades in version 4.7. Selecting chords has become much easier. Simply double-click any note in a chord to select all of its notes. If you want to copy and paste this selection, you can use the existing keyboard shortcut R, which now works not only when inputting notes, but also when selecting a note or chord, thanks to community contributor Ashraf El-Droubi. And if you've ever found yourself spending ages working through the chain of sounds and audio effects menus in the mixer, you can now quickly jump to the plugin or library you want, thanks to a new search box inside the sound selector and audio effects menus. We've also added the ability to start playback from the last selected note or rest. Hold Shift while pressing the spacebar to try it out. Another welcome addition in 4.7 is the ability to export your score as a video. Head to Publish, Export, and choose MP4 Video. For information on how this works and what you'll need to do to install the required FFmpeg video converter for free, check out our handbook linked below. The exported video includes a scrolling view of your score along with its audio playback. And speaking of playback, we've made some significant changes under the hood of the audio engine, which should reduce lag and improve performance on all operating systems. And Windows users can now enjoy lower latency out of the box with a new 256 sample buffer size, as well as ASIO support, unlocking even better playback quality and significantly lower latency if you have an ASIO compatible audio interface. And now we're going to quickly walk through some of our favorite features in this release from our developer community. Musicians who work with alternate tuning systems will now enjoy a completely remodeled Tuning and Temperaments plugin, thanks to the combined efforts of Xiaomi Gross, Ashraf El-Droubi, and Fernando Martin. The plugin combines the 3 older plugins into a single, streamlined user interface. From Nathan Reed, we have some handy new options for managing enharmonic spelling. If you head to the Tools menu, you'll now find Respell Pitches with Sharps and Respell Pitches with Flats, which are both shortcut assignable, giving you more control over how you want your notation to be spelled. And if you're inputting notation with a MIDI keyboard, you can now select one of the accidentals buttons in the note input toolbar or via the numeric keyboard shortcuts, and MuseScore will spell the notes and chords you play using your chosen accidental, reducing the need for subsequent editing. Thanks again to Nathan Reed for this one. Another nice improvement to note interactions, the Q and W keyboard shortcuts can now be used to modify the rhythm of notation you've already inputted. Simply select a note or range of notes and press Q to halve their durations or W to double their durations, thanks to Joachim Schmitz. If you've ever used the Find Go-To panel by pressing Ctrl F or Command F on Mac, you'll appreciate now being able to select a range of measures, thanks to Maxi Schwindler. On the audio front, the default MS Basic SoundFont now sounds much better out of the box, thanks to the re-addition of a low-pass filter by contributor Bakajikara, who also enabled 16 and 24-bit options when exporting audio as WAV files. And finally, if you like to view your score in invert mode, you can now set it to do this automatically whenever the app is in dark mode. Head over to Preferences to switch this on. Again, thanks to Nathan Reed. MuseScore Studio 4.7 also includes a number of important bug fixes which should improve the overall stability of the app, particularly during startup. In addition, we've resolved a number of issues that were affecting people using the app across multiple displays. Check out the forum on musescore.org for updates on new releases, and be sure to subscribe to this channel to get the latest news from MuseScore Studio as well as Muse Sounds. Thanks for watching, and we hope you enjoy using MuseScore Studio 4.7.